Okay, everyone, good afternoon. How's it going? Just hanging out with Eddie here. He's making a little brief appearance. I hope you're all doing well, and we just have about 3.5 minutes, then we'll get started. Eddie? Good boy. Eddie's cutie.
She's also
Hey, Devin. How's it going, Paul? Eddie. Yeah, you don't always get to see Eddie. He's a little shy, but today he's making a real step up. Big boy, he's growing every day. This is Eddie. The other one is Princess Peach, Peachy, yes. So this is the brother. She's the sister. He's definitely a little bigger. What's up, Lauren? Are you all right? Saying help? Oh, no. Hello. I get it. How are you doing, Anthony? Yeah, handsome boy, huh? Eddie. Good boy. Yes, they are. They're the same litter, same age. They just turned 1 year old. So we got this 1 year old boy right here. Yeah, everything's going well over here for me, Anthony. I've just been having a normal Thursday. Kind of just had a few classes earlier. Now getting to you guys. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that, but yeah, it's interesting. They're different personalities, but they really get along very well, and they're both really sweet. But yeah, you get the different vibe from like the boy and the girl. I only had female cats and stuff in the past, so this is like a new thing with Eddie. But I'm actually very, very happy we did because he's I don't know, he's really fun. He plays fetch. He's got all kinds of weird little routines that he does that you wouldn't expect from a cat. See your comment here, Paul. You say the girl's still alive. Calico. Okay, yeah, my old cat was a calico as well. Interesting. You have whole different colorations and stuff. How old is your cat? I wonder. Well, you'll let me know. But anyway. Oh, okay, I get it. Cool reference to the lakes. Welcome back, guys. It's now 12:45. I'm just going to go ahead and get things started as usual. So thanks, everyone, for having taken the quiz that you just did on fallacies. I'm going to release the answer key for that in the next day or so, and so then you can compare it to your own answers and make sure that you know how you did, and you can check with me for your score, obviously, as well, either on that or on the whole class or any other specific assignments. I'm going to quickly take a look at my copy of our class syllabus just to give you any timely notifications on upcoming dates. Eddie, stop. Okay, so yeah, we are going to have another homework assignment. That homework assignment, the original due date that's listed in the calendar of dates is next Thursday, a week from today. But I think I'm going to just delay that slightly so that you'll have a little more time to work on it, because some of the information that we're going to go through today and some of the videos that I'm going to post after the meeting will be helpful for you. And I think it'd be nice for you to have a little more time to collect your thoughts. So I'm thinking I'll probably just postpone the due date until the end of that weekend. So instead of April 29th, that would give you as far as Sunday night, midnight, May 2nd. So that'll give you another 3 days. But anyway, that third homework assignment, instructions to follow, but just so you can think about it a little, it's going to have to do with finding examples of fallacies in advertising and marketing materials that you see in the media. So you're basically going to try and dig up commercials, print ads, digital ads, whichever you can find that contain fallacies from our 20 that we've learned. And anyway, that's the next homework assignment with clear instructions that I'll mail out afterwards on Canvas. And you can simply check with me through email if you have any other questions about it after we start developing it. But we've moved on from our topic of Chapter 5. Well, we're still thinking about fallacies, and we're going to now talk a little bit more about how they could be applied in case we're looking at the media. So we're going to talk about advertising, marketing, and the media today. That's the topic of today's lesson. If you look at the syllabus, one more thing, you'll notice that Tuesday the 27th, next class, what's designated on the schedule is videos on media and digital literacy. That was one moment in the semester where I would always bring in, or not bring in rather, but just play certain videos in the class meeting when we had face-to-face. But since we don't have that, my options are to either hold a regular meeting where I turn on Zoom and we will do screen share and watch it, or just mail them to you and let you watch them on your own during your own scheduled time. So that's what I think I'll do. Because of that, on, sorry to hear about that, Noah. I hope your dog's okay. But anyway, yeah, like I'm gonna just mail you those videos for the Tuesday meeting, and then you'll be able to watch them at your own. No, I'm not gonna use Zoom. I'm talking about how I'm going to do something different than that. So what I'm going to do is just mail you the videos. They're going to be sent to you, and you'll be able to watch them whenever you want. So instead of having a regular class meeting on Tuesday, you'll just watch these videos, and that'll be your assignment for that day. But let us go back. Let us talk about media. So today we have a couple of different items from the book. There's some stuff in Chapter 11 on mass media, and there's also some stuff in Chapter 10 on marketing and advertising. So I want to start off with just this information from Chapter 11. I thought that the book, in a weird way, kind of went out of order, talking about the more fundamental concepts of media in the chapter that follows, marketing and advertising. So for now anyway, Chapter 11, media. So we're in this little unit of our class that's all about media, marketing, and advertising. That's Media Week. Today, Tuesday, that's what it's all about. So some of the information that I'm going to talk to you guys about today is a little bit more conversational and breezy than the bullet point for point kind of vocabulary-driven lectures that we sometimes do have. That's just due to the nature of the topic, but I'll add notes to the board as necessary as we go through our talk here. So good critical thinking skills, among all the other things that they require of us, require us to be able to analyze and interpret information that we find in media. So we have to look at the history of media in the United States, learn a little bit about the dependency of mass media on advertising revenue, develop skills for critically evaluating news reports, and determine how to examine the influence of government on media reports, as well as analyzing media and marketing messages and the impact of the internet. So mass media in the United States. We take in so much media every day in this country, and really in the whole Western world, but we're focusing on ourselves for the moment. We take in so much media each day between television, cell phone, internet, and then traditional forms of print media, newspapers, and magazines. So we want to be aware of its influence on us, because it does have a significant influence on us. It takes on more and more of the traditional roles that the family and the educational institutions used to take care of. So since it's having this growing and increasing role in our lives, we want to be able to critically analyze its influence upon us. I'm just opening to my pages here in the book. All right, so before television emerged way back in the World War II, post-war era, 1940s, radio and magazine were the main forms of mass media. So let's just know what is mass media. Mass media, just a form of communication that is designed to reach and influence large national or international audiences. So a form of communication. A large, either national or even international audience. Okay, form of communication, and it's trying to reach a very, very big general audience. So mass media is sometimes compared and contrasted against niche media. Another term that we should know. Okay, and so, yeah, so, okay, Noah, you know, here's the thing, though, I got to say to you, Noah. I appreciate your comment and your humor, but it is difficult when I look at the sheer volume of comments that you write in this chat. It is not so easy for me to quickly scan it and make a determination as to whether you're making a serious comment or whether you're just trying to be funny. So I would appreciate it if you're a little bit more, I don't know, judicious in your use of humor, because if you're throwing in like 10 jokes and then one serious comment, it's not so easy for me to quickly look over at the screen and make a quick call as to, do I take this as a comment that I have to address in the lecture, or I'm simply going to disregard it? So maybe if you want to sprinkle in a more balanced mixture of actual commentary about the content and then jokes, then that would be a better thing. But you know, you're getting a little bit off balance with too much jokes and not enough seriousness. Like I've told you before, sarcasm has its place in life. But when you're overly sarcastic all the time, you stop being a serious person. So please, Noah, thank you. Back to what I'm saying now, niche media is another type of media. It's not mass media, but it's geared towards a more narrow, specific, targeted audience. So, okay, so mass media is not necessarily try to cater towards one or another demographic group or special interest group. There's niche media, though, that does try to cater to a specific subdomain of people. So sometimes you'll see media organizations and outlets that are geared towards specific types of people. I guess there used to be like Spike Television, which was more geared at like a stereotypically, you know, heteronormative male kind of thing. Then you see channels where it's all about children's programming, so the programming is dedicated and devoted towards like children's sensibilities and such. But in the large mass media universe, it's just kind of there for everybody from all different walks of life, age groups, races, special interests, and so on. G4, yeah, I remember that one. That was what, the video game channel for people that are gaming enthusiasts. And that's just, we're talking about TV. If you go into print media, you have like Guns and Ammo for firearm enthusiasts, Cars and Automotive for people that are into automobiles. So, until they started only having professional wrestling and then you quit watching, fair enough. Yeah, so we understand that as media has proliferated and expanded its reach, there's more and more specialized outlets that are catered towards specific interests and hobbies and so on. Now, by the 1930s, half of the United States home had a radio. In the 1930s and 1940s, there were only a few radio networks that did all of the news and entertainment programming. If you wanted to watch visual news back then, before the advent of television, when radio was the norm of American households, you would have had to go and watch visual newsreels at the movie theater, which they would show weekly. So it would actually be kind of like a communal experience to go in and take in the news hour if you wanted to watch it on a screen or on a projected whatever screen, because they didn't have household television sets yet. So anyway, though, after World War II, for years, there were just only 3 television stations. Spike, yeah, well, okay. I guess we all have our views about the kind of common consumer of certain media outlets. But I have a question for you guys. Does anyone have the knowledge or opinion even about what were the 3 original TV stations? They still exist, but these were the big 3 back in the day as we started off. So any guesses? The 3 original TV stations that showed everything, so you had 3 choices, not like a million. Well, ABC is one of them. That's right, Jonah. they're still like they're the basic channels that you don't need cable for. So like, you know, those first 5 channels or whatever, you've got ABC, NBC, and there is one more. Well, we got those 2. Anyone have a thought about the 3rd one? Not InfoWars. No, sorry, it's not in the list. Come on, guys, someone knows it, right? Paul, wouldn't you know it? KBC, TBS, weather, no. Okay, it is CBS. Okay, so we just had these big 3. ABC, American Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, National Broadcasting Corporation, CBS. Forget what CBS's initials are for. No, not PBS, that was a later innovation too. So you just had these 3 channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, to provide all of your entertainment, news, sports, and everything else. But obviously since then, in the generations that have followed, mass media has had a larger and larger influence, and it's splintered off into more and more niche media outlets. As we see here in page 335, some, I think, insightful commentary. The increasing presence of mass media in our culture has changed our lives. Since the 1950s, more and more of our experiences have been shaped by the corporations that control the media, rather than by family and educational institutions on which past generations relied. On the other hand, without these mass media corporations, we would not have the free or relatively inexpensive access to entertainment and information that we do now enjoy. So it's kind of like, I think the text is trying to present you with a balanced picture of the benefits and costs that come from this new media-rich information environment that we live in today, that, you know, our grandparents, great-grandparents did not live in. On the one hand, media can take over the job of like informing young people about what's happening in the world. If you had grown up 100 years ago, you would have had to seek out information from a more centralized source of information, like a library or a professor or somebody in the community that has a knowledgeable opinion. But now you can sort of feed yourself on a diet of information from whatever media source that you want to choose to go to, whether it's on the internet or whether it's in, you know, print media or on television or mobile. And so that gives people less of a unified system of information that we can all agree to. And sometimes that does have a tendency to fray the communal bonds that we take as a country and as a civilization. You know, some people can live in their own complete media environment where the facts that they assume are true are different from the facts that other people assume are true. And it gets harder for people to agree on consensus policies and et cetera when we have those kind of issues. So if people worry that the family and educational institutions are not shaping the development and intellectual point of view of young people, then that's a concern. But on the other hand, of course, it is quite nice, isn't it, to live in a world where you don't have to go to the library or go to a physical university campus to ask questions. You can simply direct your own research if you're digitally literate and a good critical thinker. You can certainly find a lot more information at a much faster rate. So you have access to more information than previous generations had. But in a way, this maze of additional access can also prevent us from making clear and reasonable decisions about what to believe. So sure, let's continue with a little bit more from there. So nowadays, your cell phones, your television channels, internet give us far greater media choices than ever before. Audiences are more specialized. You have a lot of these specialty networks and media organizations. People also seem today to be increasingly willing to select their media on the basis of their political ideology as well. And so political polarization is in some ways intensified by the fact that we have entire media organizations that seem dedicated to promoting one or the other partisan viewpoint. So sometimes people will say that if you wanted a maybe more liberal skew or slant, then you would watch like MSNBC or maybe NPR news. But if you wanted something with a little more of a rightward slant, then it would be Fox News or even, I don't know, Newsmax, OAN. I don't know about CNN, Joan. I think the stereotypical idea that CNN is like some kind of biased network is actually a relatively new thing since the Trump era, because for a long time, CNN has been regarded as the neutral middle ground, whereas you have MSNBC to the left and Fox News to the right. But anyway, I mean, Trump had a lot of issues, I guess, with like unbiased reporting, and so he made the claim over and over again, which I know you've been having it drilled into your head that it's all fake news from CNN, but that's, I think, a trope of the modern day right, not necessarily, in my opinion, accurate to the real content of the information, but there are left-leaning media outlets for sure. It's a concern because, again, like I say, if people can be walled off into their own bubble of their own echo chamber of like-minded opinion, then they'll never expose themselves to contrary argument, evidence, or opinion, and then they won't have a fully objective view of things. We also see a disturbing trend of a few corporations consolidating more and more of the news media. So it's kind of funny, even though there's been this splintering out of all these other media outlets, there's also been corporate consolidation so that there's fewer corporate owners of a bigger footprint of media outlets. So as an example, here's what's stated in the book. In the early 80s, back in like 1983, 50 different companies, roughly, supplied us with all of our media options. But by the turn of this last decade, 2014, most media is controlled by just 6 companies, which include Time Warner, Disney, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, Bertelsmann of Germany, Viacom, and General Electric, which owns NBC. Now, sometimes people are worried with reasonable basis, because if you have a few corporate masters that control most of the media, then you might worry about whether or not that affects the quality and the content of the programming that we eventually end up watching and seeing. For example, these entities need to generate revenue by means of advertising dollars. So vendors that want to sell and advertise their product on the airwaves of, let's say, a media organization will pay the organization in order to pay for that airtime and then show the commercials during the intermissions. But because of the reliance on media of advertising revenue, it might make you worry about whether or not that threatens the objectivity of some of the media reporting. For example, if Coca-Cola is running expensive ads during the commercials of a news hour, is that news organization really going to run a hard-hitting expose on the dangers of like a big sugary drink lobby, or the obesity epidemic that's being fueled in part by such kinds of drinks? Probably not, because running such a story might run contrary to the profit incentive and motive of the advertiser. And so that's just one arbitrarily selected example, but that kind of pattern is something that you might worry about in terms of the accuracy, quality, etc. of news reports. Also, the news media is able to donate to, like news media corporations, what I'm saying. They're able to donate to political campaigns or to political causes that they want to champion. So there's actually quite a lot of lobbying money that gets spent by many of these media arms to lobby Congress to make laws that are suitable to their profit incentive and motive. So this is the reason that we should have some degree of rational skepticism about some of the quality and content of the news that we do find. Preston, high proliferation of information that has not been thoroughly processed through all connections of relevance. That's a big one that comes to mind. Yes, this is also true. Like, for example, there's sometimes a rush to be the first to report on a story, so to get the scoop, because if you're like the reporter or the news organization that reports it first, then that's going to result in a lot more viewership, and that's going to drive profit. But the rush to be the first to report on a scoop can sometimes cause misreporting. As you guys may know, like when there are mass shootings and stuff, sometimes the original eyewitness reports of people that are in a total state of panic and fear are given credibility in initial news reports, and that's why sometimes we get the wrong number of shooters, the wrong motive, the wrong identity. So sometimes the first reports are not necessarily the best. Oh, thanks, Jonah, for your reminder. I'm just using it for water for the most part, but no, I understand. Yeah, it's been used heavily this week. This is like the first week I really used it, so I do appreciate it. I will clean it today. Anyway, I was just saying the scoop motive to be the first to report. Sometimes that causes misreporting. Thinking about the 2000 election between Gore and W. Bush, famously, news organizations were really, eager to call the race so that they could be the ones that said, "We told you who won." And it looked like it would come down to Florida pretty much, or that it would be a decisive state probably. And when the votes were very close, misreporting, I guess, happened, according to which they declared Gore the winner, with all the confusion and chaos that followed after that. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruling that recount could not go forward or something along those lines. So again, in a rush to report, perhaps sometimes things have to even be retracted later. Now, there's another interesting fact that I'm sure you guys do know. The influence of traditional print media like newspaper, magazine, and then also television has declined by over 30% since the year 2000. In the year 2000, there were like peak levels of viewership, subscriptions, etc., for print media and television, but it's gone down by over 30% since then. What do you think could possibly have happened since the year 2000, about 21 years ago, to have brought down the central importance and market share of print media and TV? Why is it that fewer people are reading, paper news and watching TV? What do you think could be the reason for that? Something happened? What was it? Any guess? I think you probably could guess, but just go ahead and throw it out there. Well, you say ease of access, sort of. This is not specific enough yet, though. Easier to digest. I'm not sure, Noah, if you're hearing my question. My question was this: why do you think that print media and TV has declined by over 30% since the year 2000? What's easier to digest? I don't know what you mean. What is this easier thing? My question didn't say of a thing why it is. And I said, why is print media and TV on the decline? Because what is easier to digest? I'm just trying to understand your statement. There you go, the internet. Yeah, the internet, correct. So the rise of the internet and social media has driven out of the central position it used to occupy, the things that I talked about, print media and TV. So as you guys probably know, you don't necessarily need to even have a TV or have a newspaper subscription to be fully informed. You can simply log onto the internet, go to any number of reporting websites, or even look on social media to determine what links are being posted by your friends and connections and check in on the news that way. Also, because we have social media like Twitter, a lot of people can simply refer to crowdsourced reports that are happening by people that are live at the scene of different events. So, like when shootings break out, sometimes you'll actually see the first real reports from people that are there, like, oh, I'm hiding under a table and I'm posting this on Twitter. Sometimes you'll get more information simply by going onto social media, at least quicker in a crowdsourced fashion than through the vetting channels of major media organizations. Not to say that it's better or worse, but it simply removes some of the needs that was there before to have dedicated reporters on the scene. There's labor costs associated with news reporting, and so those can also be, in a way, eliminated because we can refer to crowdsourced reports, even if we are mainstream media organizations. There also is this other trend in the media today, away from focus on hard news and policy matters towards lifestyle, entertainment, and gossip. So kind of ironic or sad is that even though we have access to much more media right at our fingertips through our phones and computers, we're not necessarily using that increased access for things that are making us better, well-informed citizens or more knowledgeable people. A lot of it is dedicated towards like humor, celebrity gossip, making up, breaking up, sports, and memes and stuff like that. So even though we have the power and the ability to be more well-informed, we're not necessarily using it to become more well-informed. So it's kind of like an interesting stalemate. People in the past didn't have all the same media tools, but they, I guess, focused more on some of those things that were important. So as good critical thinkers, we should try to do our best job to have a reasonable balance of facts and information and topical issues when we pursue information on media, even though it's, of course, fun to be entertained and to just have a couple laughs, right? I don't want to paint a very dark picture, though. I kind of want you guys to see that there's a balance here. As much as there's some room for criticism, as always, we should still have, I think, a deep and abiding respect for the free press. It's a constitutionally protected value that we have a free press in a democratic system, because if you don't have a free press, then who is going to expose corporate scandals and mismanagement or government scandals and mismanagement when those journalists that do their job well, that's a benefit to all of us as citizens and as human beings. For example, a couple of cases mentioned in the book, just to scratch the surface. It says, at the same time, the news media have played and continue to play a key role in exposing corporate and government scandals. The expose of John Rockefeller and his oil monopoly by editor and journalist Ida Tarbell resulted in federal investigation and Supreme Court's breakup of Standard Oil in 1911. So that was a major change ushered in by investigative journalism. In the early 1970s, as you guys I'm sure would know, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein of the Washington Post played a significant role in exposing the 1972 Watergate scandal, which led to the resignation of President Nixon. So obviously, like even the resignation of a president, major policy changes, even legal changes can be advanced by media oversight. And so we have to honor and respect that even as we remain critical. No, I thought you guys were saying why print media has gone down and TV up. Yeah, so no, that's not the case. TV's gone down, social media and the internet has gone up. Yeah, and I understand what you're talking about, Noah. If you're in reference to like a current generation's like web browsing habits, you would probably be more in touch with it even than me. But I think I understand what you're talking about, and I deal with people that are on the same kind of wavelength with that stuff. So what about the internet? The 1990s is really when the internet kind of started. I'm old enough to remember the early days of the internet. It's kind of funny because data speeds and internet speed was very slow. It was all done through your telephone line, and you know, if you're on AOL or whatever, you couldn't use the phone at the same time because it was occupying the phone line. And the speeds, like what, 20 kilobits per second, something really pathetic. So it would take forever for you to just load like a basic image on the screen. But you got to start somewhere. And obviously, since the turn of the 21st century, year 2000, it's gotten much faster, more efficient, widespread in its user base, and the use of the internet has exploded. So today we have billions of people that are online, definitely over 2.5 billion people worldwide. And so it's an important thing to know about for our daily lives. Let me look here. Impact on daily life. So in 2014 rather, American freshmen in college, I wonder what percentage you thought were using some kind of social media site. It's a big number. Upwards of 94% of college freshmen are on some social media site each week, and 25% of those are using it in excess of 6 hours in a given week. Some people argue that preoccupation with your social media feeds, always checking your notifications, messages, posting things, can have an adverse effect on your performance in school because it, of course, can detract from your ability to study. I mean, everyone thinks they're the exception to the rule. Like, no, I have my life in balance and I have a good work-school balance, and so I'm not worried about that. But it's something that has been studied, and it's well advised for you to at least try your best to keep in the balance of your life, the importance of your studies and your study habits too. You say, Preston, my dad and mom both remember the switch from dial-up to when internet used the TV cables for data transfer. Yeah, it was a big deal because all of a sudden you could actually like do things on the internet, play video games with people, download things in a faster way. Keeps getting better and better. I don't know, I have the 5G internet connection now. Still sometimes with all the streaming I'm doing and broadcasting like this, data speeds can get slow. So I'm gonna keep making progress on that. High school seniors spend a lot of time on social media, sometimes more than studying. The internet offers us an opportunity, especially during the pandemic, to disengage more and more from the reality of the external world. So you can do almost anything online that you could have previously only done in real life. Meeting people, having relationships, applying for jobs, applying for school, taking classes like this, buying things in the consumer marketplace, advertising things. So in a way, it kind of gives us the ability to do much more from home and from the privacy of our own environment, but it also, some think, detracts from the sort of robust, rich nature of having a more interactive social environment. So think critically about what you see, hear, and even post online. It says in the book about posting things that you should be considerate about whether what you're posting is something offensive, controversial, overtly sexual, or illegal. Of course, derogatory remarks can come back to haunt you as well. Sometimes I've heard people with the saying, there's a tweet for everything. So just know that as much as you may create social media accounts that are not easily traceable to your personal identity, a lot of times people end up tweeting and saying things online that they later come to regret if it's exposed in a setting with like an employer or authority figure that has to weigh judgment over you. So, I mean, as much as we have a freedom of speech, you should also be a little bit careful and considerate about the nature and the content of the things that you do post. Now, I know that's mentioned in the book, and I would generally agree with it, but I think in a way it's kind of like an ironic catch-22, because there are a lot of people in high positions of power that are much more, I don't know, loose and unprofessional in the way they sometimes say things on the internet. But if you're wondering, is there a double standard for the citizen versus the person in a high position of power? In a lot of cases there is. You might not be able to get away with the same things that some other people say on Twitter if you were to say them and it was exposed in a job interview type setting. So just understand that in this kind of world that we live in, you're liable to be judged based on the things not that you say just in person, but that you've written online in the past. So keep that in mind. The internet is a great equalizer as well. It's something that makes the discussion and the dissemination of information just broad and universal. You don't have to be like a person with a esteemed title or position of authority to weigh in on the big issues of our day. You just go on Twitter and join the conversation or the debate, whatever it might be about. And sometimes that's a little annoying to hear everyone popping off with their own hot take on stuff, but really it does have a positive function because it assists organizing efforts, social change movements. It has even facilitated progress towards democracy in a lot of parts of the world that were hostile towards liberal democracy in the past. Like during the Arab Spring, for example, social media was a powerful organizing tool to get people together so that they could effectively organize and agitate for reform. So it can, of course, be a positive factor and a force for social change. We even see that in our own country, right? Organizing efforts around whatever causes that people advocate for. At the same time, be wary of claims that you read on the internet that are not able to be verified by other available sources of evidence. As you know, you should always double check against other reputable and mainstream sources of evidence when you see claims on the internet, especially if they seem outlandish, bizarre, or poorly sourced. It's easy enough for people to go down a rabbit hole of just weird and bizarre sensational claims because they're not willing to double check against other sources of evidence. So make sure that you don't allow confirmation bias or something to influence the way that you pursue information, and try and remain neutral and objective. Yeah, I know what you mean. No, it happens too much. Be alert to the possibilities of invasion of privacy, harassment, and fraud, of course. When you're posting your information out there online, be careful about who may gain access to it, because there's all kinds of, opportunities for identity theft or just harassment, getting doxxed and stuff like that. They make a brief mention here in this chapter about how much pornography is viewed on the internet. And I don't know if this surprises you, but as much as 30% of all web traffic in the United States has to do with viewing pornographic materials. So that's a lot of internet that's just focused on viewing porn. Now, of course, if you're an adult and it's obviously a person's choice what they want to view, whether it's salacious or sexual or whatever within the law. But just know that if you're doing these things in the wrong setting, at work or at school, that can bring accountability to you. If you're in charge of children and you have a position of responsibility where you oversee children, then you'd probably be well advised to monitor them closely or to get some kind of application that prevents them from seeing unapproved sites. Of course, it's hard to do that because the actual kind of restrictions that do exist are oftentimes easily bypassed for young people who can just simply click that they're over 18 or whatever. So that's something, of course, for parents and people in positions of responsibility over children to be concerned with. This woman hit you up to, okay, funny Noah, okay. So you were trying to catfish somebody, I guess. You could have induced in the person a justified but false belief. There's also the ability that students have to use the internet to plagiarize assignments and submit work that they didn't do honestly. Sad enough, there's a significant percentage of students that will have either tried or considered doing that. But you should all know that that's wrong. As a professor, what else would I tell you? It's deceptive, it's wrong, it shows resistance to learning the material. The point of school is not just to pass papers around that someone else wrote so that you can get their credit. Obviously that's dishonest, it lacks integrity. So if you want to do the best for yourself, and if you want to be a person with a high sense of personal integrity, then you should probably not do that, even though it's an option that some have. If you have media and tech-savvy professors, though, it's easy for us to detect when plagiarism does happen. So I would not want to compromise my progress through school by making an unwise decision like that. It's always okay to take an L and just get a bad grade. That's what I say anyway. Well, one more little piece of terminology, I guess, to just add to this part of our discussion is the term media literacy. Media literacy. So it's just the ability to understand and critically analyze the influence of media. Okay, it's important to be media literate. It's funny, no, okay, you're just going to use your own photo. Well, that's technically not catfishing then. I can understand. But yeah, media literacy. So since we're drowning in media, really, I mean, we're watching it all the time. We'll talk in a moment about statistics, but you'll be shocked in a way to know how many hours a day the average American spends utilizing some form of media between computer, cell phone, television, print media, and all of that. Since it's so kind of fully saturated through our whole lives, it's a ubiquitous feature of our modern life, we want to be able to have some sense of independence and control and not to allow it to control our own lives. So the textbook advises trying to use our 3-stage model of critical thinking to develop media literacy. First of all, be aware of how you experience media. Ask yourself, how much do you use it? Where do you have a tendency to go? Do a little bit of introspection on your own habits and ask, where are these media productions coming from? Who creates them and why? Is there an agenda behind these things? Is there a profit motive behind them? Is there an ideological motive? Is it trying to be satirical or funny? Or is it just a sincere effort at objective information? Maybe note the appearance of any set design or music or graphics. Sometimes even in news media, you'll find that they will try to shape the viewer's perspective by editing the music and design of the set. So like foreboding, spooky music comes on right as they're about to discuss some kind of criminal act, or like lighthearted, friendly, funny music comes as they're about to show you like kids playing in a different news bit. So sometimes be aware of how these kind of factors that are not the information itself can sometimes influence our viewing experience and judgment. Note the time that's devoted to ads and how many ads, which kind of ads are being advertised. That might also give you a sense of the priorities and relationships business-wise that the media production company has. Interpret afterwards the messages that you've experienced. So make sense by asking yourself what values or points have been expressed in this media. Examine your own reaction to it and why did you have it. Ask yourself, what does the reaction you have to this media say about you? Do you find yourself having a hostile reaction, an overly supportive reaction? Does confirmation bias lead you to have a lower standard or a higher standard of proof when it comes to certain claims? Try to mitigate that by being willing to take in news from a variety of sources. Sometimes it's worthwhile for you to sample news from sources that you don't have a tendency to necessarily agree with, if for no other reason than seeing how other people think and what their assumptions are and what their talking points would be. So it's a good thing for you even to be willing to step outside of your own comfort zone and to examine media from alternative viewpoints. Doesn't mean you'll have to agree with them in the end, but you want to at least see the balance of ideas. No, more influential is the fact that most ads on the internet are programmed and geared towards you. Based on our data and search history, yes. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a moment, about how our web browsing habits are actually information that then is sold to other companies in order to more effectively market products to us, yes. Finally, analyze media messages. See if your analysis is rational or if it's driven by emotion. Note any resistance you may have to alternative interpretations, and see if there are any misleading or fallacious tactics used in presenting the information. Okay. Now I want to talk also, having gone over the stuff in chapter 11, I'm going to take a step back then into the chapter 10 material and just speak about advertising. So analyzing advertising, that's what chapter 10 is all about. Advertising and marketing. Okay, so why are some companies so good at advertising and marketing? And why are some of us so susceptible to the appeal they're making to us to buy their products? In this part of the text, we're going to talk about and try to learn about some marketing strategies and the critical thinking skills that are needed to either be effective at marketing and advertising, if you're the one trying to sell something, or as a consumer, to avoid being unduly manipulated or exploited on the basis of sometimes misleading or fallacious appeals to us to buy products. So advertising in the media. There's three real big purposes of ads. Okay, so on the one hand, it can sometimes be to just create product awareness. In another case, it could be to inform consumers about a product or service. That's kind of the more traditional function of classical advertising and marketing. We still see it though, but it's a little less common today, to inform consumers about a product or service. And then the third possibility could simply be to motivate consumer or customer demand. To motivate, to stimulate consumer demand. Okay. So I'll just say a bit about each of these. First of all, some advertisements and marketing impressions are not even trying to tell you anything about the product or service, why you would want it, what it's like. Rather, they just try to remind you that it exists so that you're just aware of it. So, you know, say you're driving around and you see a billboard off to the side which just says Coca-Cola, and it's got the classic font of that cursive, you know, lettering splashed against the red background that we all have seen. And it's not saying, here's why you want to have Coca-Cola. It tastes great, less filling, better than the competitor's brand. Try this flavor. I mean, some of the ads are like that, but if it's just one that says Coca-Cola and it's just the logo, then all it's doing is reminding you to be aware of the product, so that maybe the next time you're out at the grocery store or wherever and you're thinking of buying a drink, you'll just remember the existence of this product and you're reminded to buy it. And so a lot of ads are like this. They just show the logo, they just remind us of the name, but it has its effect. It keeps it in our head, and then when we're out there buying stuff, we think of that as a good option. Another marketing purpose or strategy is to inform consumers about the product or service. So if you're watching, I don't know, a car commercial, they might talk to you. Here's the safety record of this car. Here's why it has this awesome all-wheel drive feature, and here's what that's good for doing. And here's how it stacks up against the competitor's car in the same class. So, well, Noah, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. The Pepsi challenge, which one was that? You know, there's been so many commercials and ads that I kind of lose sight of which campaign it is that you're referring to. You're talking about like a taste test commercial where they say, hey, you on the street, which one of these do you like? But I'm only speculating, so you'd have to tell me. But as I was just saying here, some of those ads are in the more traditional vein of just trying to inform you about the desirability of the product or service, what it offers, and all of that. Classical ads, if you go back and you look at like classic TV, that was much more common in the past, because the way I see it is that today, where there's like a million different media sources competing for your attention, the commercials know that, and so sometimes they're like, this person's got such a short attention span, the only way I'm gonna make an impression on them is by making them laugh or doing something really like bizarre that they can't forget, like an image that they can't get out of their head. So a lot of these current day commercials are kind of like almost like memes and stuff. There's like a lot of non sequiturs, a lot of just absurdist humor. You know, watch like a Geico commercial. It has nothing to do with the purchase of car insurance. It's just a big, weird, absurdist, Dadaist joke or something. But anyway, in the earlier days of advertising, that would have seemed too weird, too abstract, too unconventional. People are like, what's the product? Why do I need it? But nowadays, we still see this sometimes. And that's a good example, Preston. 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. They're talking about how fast it accelerates and all of that. Yeah, thanks, guys. That was peachy. You've seen them both today, so this has been like a deluxe cat meeting. Now, in the third case, motivating consumer demand. You can motivate consumer demand sometimes by not even saying much about the product, nor about just mentioning that it exists, by attaching some other incentive to it. So like say that the advertisement just has a bunch of like beautiful models or celebrities or something, and they're just shown drinking it. That's just trying to remind you that, hey, beautiful people like this, maybe you can tap into some of that like lifestyle if you have it too. In another case, you're looking at like cereal boxes and it says, hey, inside the box, there's a chance for you to win an all expenses paid trip to whatever, Cancun or something. So like the sweepstakes, the drawing, the raffle that's attached to the purchase of the product stimulates demand in a way that's not necessarily about the product itself, nor just about recognizing its existence. Noah, you say this. They figured out that people have the attention span of a walnut, so they just got to make everything a meme. Yeah, you know, I mean, that's one way of saying it, right? That's kind of the gist of what I was trying to put out there. I'm not trying to be cynical or something about our current day media environment, but you've seen the changes, and if you want, you can just look at it yourself. Compare commercials from like the 70s to, you know, some of the weird commercials that we have today, but they are very funny. Okay, so ads that achieve any of these different goals are seen in a whole range of familiar settings, sometimes in the digital world on the internet, sometimes in physical space on billboards and posted signs, sometimes on people's clothing where logos are embossed. Then they simply walk around functioning as like a walking advertisement with Adidas, Nike logo, the swoosh, whatever, these recognizable emblems that are imprinted in our mind in a way so that we kind of keep these corporate ideas and logos with us when we make purchasing decisions. We see them in a variety of familiar settings, and more than one of these functions can be achieved in a single ad. So sometimes an advertiser will mix and match, you know, telling you about the product, also trying to add to it some kind of sweepstakes, and then just at the end, seeing the logo. So as you know, it's not necessarily that only one has to be the exclusive intended outcome. So by its nature, advertising has the attempt to persuade you, right? An advertiser and a marketer doesn't really want to leave you alone to just do whatever you want. They want you to buy their product. And so every ad, in a way, has an implied argument built within it. The conclusion of the tacit argument is, therefore, you ought to buy this product. And the reasons are whatever the sales pitch is. Do you want to look better? Do you want to smell better? Do you want to have more success? Do you want to have a better car? Do you want to have a better, safer car? Do you want to have something that your kids will like? Then, therefore, you should buy this product. And so they try to give you some sense of reasons as to why having this product would be good for you or why you would want it. But because it's geared towards persuasion and profit, it's not necessarily always just geared towards objective truth, right? The advertiser's goal is not necessarily to present you with a reasonable argument, but to do whatever they can to get you to induce you to buy the product. So that means that you as a critical thinker have to be a little bit skeptical and judicious about what you will believe and how you interpret the information. Because you need to know that a lot of these advertisers don't necessarily have your best interest in mind. They have their own profit in mind. And sometimes that actually could run contrary to what's good for you. If it's an unwise purchase for a product or a service that you wouldn't have needed or wanted without the ad, then this actually is a loss for you and a win for them. So we have to be careful as we make consumer decisions. We're exposed daily to tons and tons of marketing impressions and advertisements. Marketing research firms spend billions of dollars every year to identify the target audiences of their products and then to create ads and placement that are geared towards them. So as you had said earlier, Noah, and this kind of comes back, our web browsing and search histories are oftentimes culled by the big, tech titans, Google and others. And then that information can even be sold to other companies in order to have more effective marketing and placement geared towards us. This is why the weird stuff happens to you when you're like searching around looking for some kind of hardware product, and then next thing you know, you're seeing a bunch of sponsored ads showing up randomly on your web searches trying to pitch those same products to you. In television, this can happen as well. It's a little bit of an older school thing, but there's such a thing called Nielsen ratings. Nielsen ratings are where a certain sample of the cable television viewership is identified in terms of what they're watching and when. And this gives the cable companies knowledge about the demographics that more typically watch given programming. Because of that, once you know which demographic groups are watching certain programming, then you can more effectively add marketing into the intermissions that will appeal to those groups. So that's why if you're watching TV shows that are for kids, you're going to see products that are advertised in the commercials that are for children, like games and toys and stuff. If you're watching a show that's more like, I don't know, sports or something, you might see something that's geared more towards the 18 to 44, male demographic, cars and other kinds of handy things like that. So it's not an accident. It's not just like they're, just randomly throwing ads out at us and hoping something sticks. They're spending a lot of money, and people dedicate their entire career to determining how best to make the most impact for each advertising and marketing impression. No more car seat cover ads. Were you trying to buy one and now you've been never able to get rid of it? That's funny. Now here's another thing I want you guys to know about. It's called product placement. Okay, product placement. So product placement is when the product that's being advertised is placed within the programming itself instead of during intermissions or breaks. Okay, so when the product being advertised is placed in the programming itself, instead of during intermissions or breaks. Okay, so an effective marketing strategy is product placement, and you'll notice this sometimes. So, like, say you're watching a movie and a main character opens up an Apple computer and you see the Apple logo on the back of the MacBook and they're doing their thing in the movie. You might be thinking, okay, that's random. There's no real sponsorship agreement there. But no, there have to be sophisticated licensing agreements whenever a major company's product appears in a film like that, because otherwise they could sue the company for trying to profit off of the use of their official logo, etc., to drive the profit of their own movie. So whenever such products appear in the films, there are licensing agreements between the vendor of the product or service and the production company of the movie. So, for example, it's a clandestine way of advertising because many people, if you're like me, you're not necessarily a huge fan of advertising. I mean, in my opinion, the way I look at it is that if I want to buy something, I will make an independent decision about it, and then I will go out and do my own research. And I will not just take the advertiser's word for it, because clearly they're biased in favor of their own product, and then they'll never tell you whether a competitor's product is better or whether there are problems with their own with their own product line. So I like to do my own independent research, comparison shop, look at what has been reported by other people in consumer reports and on the internet. But you can't get away from these ads a lot of time, right? So if I'm watching TV and an ad comes on, a lot of times I will mute it, or I will change the channel to watch a different channel where there's uninterrupted programming happening. If I was watching stuff online, watching videos or something, and it's YouTube, they're trying to hit me with these ads, I'll skip past them at the first opportunity, maybe even open up another window if they're going for too long and come back. But you cannot skip past or change the channel or whatever when the ad is in the programming itself that you're paying to watch, right? So if there's a movie and they start bringing up the Apple computers or drinking Pepsi or Coke, I'm not going to say, well, it's time to get up out of this movie. I refuse to be advertised to. I didn't come here for this. Because, you're already there. You paid for the movie. So if the product's in it, you're going to see it. And let me see your comments here. Truman Show. Yes, good reference. Noah, the internship is the biggest advertisement in a film. The film is an advertisement. Oh, I haven't even seen that one yet. So I'll check it out. Yeah, I know TV's a little outdated. But, I mean, the same concept applies, right, Noah? Let's see, well, we talked about film, we talked about television. There's some examples mentioned from TV in the book. They talk about, like, here we go. Just go back to chapter 10 for a moment here. Give me a second. Yeah, so ads may also be embedded in a TV program or film or other media. Product placement is an advertising strategy in which a real commercial product is used in fictional media, and the presence of the product is a result of an economic exchange between the media company and the business that produces the product. Most product placements go unnoticed unless we make a conscious effort to notice them. Coca-Cola appeared in American Idol for several years, so like the judges up there would be drinking Coke while they're watching them sing and perform. Companies pay to have their logos used in the show. The logo for a sports apparel company may appear on sports uniforms and equipment. That's another one. If you watch sports, right, take the case of, I don't know, like NASCAR racing. These cars that are driving around in the race, they're fully decked out with a bunch of decals that are emblazoned on the car, and that's from corporate sponsors that want to, have their product advertised by the driver for those that are watching the race. You can't say, I don't want to watch this race because there's those logos on the car. So that's one case of product placement. Or in like football and other stadium sports. Sometimes you'll see products and decals embossed on the walls of the stadium or the field where the players compete. In tennis, I've seen on either side of the net the Mercedes-Benz logo placed there because that's a big corporate sponsor of a lot of tennis events. And so every time these guys are playing, you're watching the rally, you're also being advertised to by Mercedes. They make some other mentions. Movie Transformers, every car is made by General Motors. The sales of Reese's Pieces candy increased 60% after they appeared in the 1982 film E.T. 2012 James Bond movie Skyfall features Coca-Cola and Smirnoff, and so on and so on. So anyway, it's an effective strategy because you can't escape it if it's in the program itself. Next, let's talk a little about the relationship between television ads and children. Children watch a lot of TV right after school. In fact, according to the statistics that we see here, almost 4 hours a day. And that was before the pandemic, right? Because this edition of the book, the 4th edition, came out in 2017. And so all those numbers are going to be way inflated now because people have nothing else to do. I mean, if you can't go anywhere, then what else are you going to do except be looking at some kind of screen, whether it's your TV, your phone, or your internet. So yeah, the statistics, I don't know if I gave this other statistic earlier. I meant to do it. Let me go back a bit. Yeah, I'm trying to find the number about how much media we watch each day, and it's a staggering amount. Even pre-pandemic, it was like so much. Oh yeah, so here, let me read this. This is from page 335. It says, we live in an information age in which we are bombarded daily with an overwhelming amount of data. How many hours a day do you think the average American spends watching TV, surfing the internet, using their smartphone, or reading the newspaper or magazines or some other form of media? What would be your guess? I mean, I'm talking about the combined number of hours each day. Okay, Preston, you say 14. I mean, I don't know, because here's the thing. This was published in 2017, and the number then was 9 hours a day. 9 hours a day for the average American to be spending looking at a television, computer monitor, cell phone, or print forms of media. Now, pre-pandemic, I'm sure it's upwards of 9. So when you think about that, there's no way that that's not going to have some kind of impact on any given person. But especially even little children, right, that are growing up in this world that don't yet have maturity or experience to make careful decisions, that don't know the clever and innovative efforts of marketers to get their support for the products they want to sell them. So little kids watch a lot of TV and other computer and other forms of media each day. They see an average of 5 hours of advertisement in a given week. And if you take that across a year, this is over 40,000 advertising and marketing impressions on these impressionable children each year for an average American child. Now, because they're so young and impressionable, ads are very effective on them because they cannot identify yet the fallacious tactics of argument that are being used on them. And in many cases, some of these companies will also really focus their appeal on the next generation of young people by making characters and mascots that are like cartoonish, childlike figures. Think of McDonald's with Ronald McDonald, or I don't even know, Burger King has the king. Then you've got all these like cereal mascots, Captain Crunch, Lucky the Leprechaun, the Trix Rabbit, Sugar Bear from Golden Crisps. I mean, so it's not unintentional. They're doing this because when children get interested in the product at a young age, then they become a lifelong customer. And so you get them in young, and then you get to have that market base for the rest of their lives. But some people, would be concerned about directing so much attention and media and money on the minds of young kids that perhaps should be sheltered from some of that to some degree. Nonetheless, ads can serve an important role because they do inform us of products and services. But, you know, as you take a balanced view, you should also have the critical idea that they can manipulate us into buying things that we don't need or might not have wanted without the ad itself. Yeah, I mean, Ronald McDonald, I don't know. I remember having birthday parties and stuff as a kid at McDonald's, and I thought they were cool because I thought that this was like kind of a kid's place. You got the play like zone inside in a lot of these McDonald's. I remember that. And then you've got like the cartoonish characters and stuff. But yeah, today as an adult, Ronald McDonald's a little scary to me. I don't know if it's just the stereotype of thinking clowns are a little bit weird, but him and Pennywise and those other guys, I mean, Ronald McDonald's right up there for me in terms of being scary. But back to what I was saying. So ads can manipulate people by appealing to emotions through fallacy, through rhetoric, and through emotional language. And so what are some of the common fallacious tactics that are used in advertisement? Well, we see scare tactics, so appeal to force/scare tactic. A lot of ads play on that because they say if you don't buy our product, maybe you're going to have bad breath. Maybe people aren't going to like you. Maybe you're not going to be successful at work or in your relationship. And so you should think about that as a fallacy when you see it in an ad. Here, I'm going to read about it from the book. So many ads rely on fallacies and psychological persuasion rather than credible information and rational arguments. Scare tactics, for example, are used to create anxiety or play on our fears, insecurity, or sense of shame. We're told that we're not good looking or thin enough, that we have bad breath, body odor, or dandruff, that we have an unattractive personality or the bad clothing, or that we're bad parents. And then the ad promises a solution to the problem. If you buy our product, this problem will go away, which we might not have even thought we had without the ad itself. Sometimes we see the fallacy of questionable cause, okay? Questionable cause. In this case, it's like the ad basically says, buying our product immediately changes your situation for the better. So, you know, you buy our product, now you're saving money, now you're having fun, now you're healthier, now you're happier, now you're more successful. Fallacy of questionable cause creates the false expectation that something wonderful, such as becoming more beautiful, thinner, more popular, or happier, will result if we use the product. I'm going to share with you guys some of these interesting videos where there's like fallacies in commercials. One of them that I'm going to share is like a series of Axe deodorant and body wash commercials, you know, that product. So there's really funny ads that they have. One of them is, I mean, a lot of them are like this. The guy uses Axe and all of a sudden women are chasing him down, like obsessed with him. So the message is, use this product and you'll be irresistible to you know, your love interest. Obviously, that's questionable at best to think that simply using one randomly chosen product, as opposed to others that are all available in the market, is going to be the key that unlocks all these opportunities for you. Another common fallacy is fallacy of popular appeal. Okay, so sometimes you'll see these ads where it's like everybody's using it. Don't be the last one that's like some lame loner not using it. Get into it. I've seen ads for like Apple products, the iPod back in the day, where they show people using the iPod everywhere in the world, in little villages, in like big cities, old people, young people, middle age, every walk of life, every lifestyle. And the message is basically like, look, everyone's using this thing, so buy the iPod. It doesn't really say what's good about the iPod, why it's a good device. It just shows people having fun using it everywhere. Sometimes we see the case of popular appeal where the reason it's popular appeal is because the one that's endorsing it is just a popular celebrity with no other reason given as to why you should support it. There's inappropriate appeal to authority. Think of the George Foreman grill. So let's see here. What was the company that gave that one out? So George Foreman's grill was originally known as the lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine. And he was just approached by the company that made the product, and they say, we want a product spokesman that people trust, that they think is friendly. And George Foreman, the famous boxer, is that kind of media personality. So he has no real knowledge that's of a relevant kind when it comes to electronics, culinary matters, or anything else. But people trust him, they like him, and because he's popular in the sporting world, he becomes this endorsement figure for a product that has nothing really to do with sports. I've seen ads that Michael Phelps has put out lately, where he says, yeah, try this mental health clinical psychology service or app because you might need it for your mental wellness. And I'm thinking, well, okay, that's a good message, but wouldn't I rather hear a clinical psychologist or a clinician saying this to me, not Michael Phelps, the famous Olympic swimmer. So he's out of his depth in terms of not being the proper authority on the matter. He's famous and popular, but not necessarily the person who's qualified to speak on that. Hasty generalization. Sometimes we see hasty generalization by the use of stereotypes, where women are portrayed in a stereotypical way, or men, or black people, or Asian people, or whatever. In other cases, hasty generalization is seen when a claim is made that everybody likes this product based on a sample that's too small or not representative. Am I fun to watch TV with? I think Noah. I mean, but when you're a professor, you kind of have to keep things a little bit cordoned off, right? Your academic and educational impact on people as opposed to your private life. Clearly, I wouldn't be the sort of person who's constantly pointing out fallacies everywhere I go. But since I have the knowledge and I know about these ideas, I do think about them. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have both sides, right? To just sort of be able to shut it down and set aside your academic concerns. David Hume, the famous philosopher, he said something much like that. He said, when I exit the study room and I'm no longer working on philosophy, I return to the common habits of thought that we all have. But there's a time and place for everything, isn't there, Noah? It's something that you're learning, I hope. So anyway, common fallacies in ads. Sometimes there's amphiboly. Amphiboly is where there's a grammatical ambiguity. One that's mentioned in the book is this. So Holland America, they are a cruise line, and they say in their ad, lowest fare guaranteed on our website. Now, what does that really mean, though? It's ambiguous. Lowest fare guaranteed on our website. Lowest of what? Lowest of all fares in the world? Or lowest fare on our website is shown on the website? You see what I mean? It's like the lowest fare that Holland Cruise Line offers is on their website, or in general. It's ambiguous just based on the grammar of the sentence itself. And of course, they're hoping that you'll take the more generous interpretation that it's the lowest price anywhere. But if you ever really followed up and said, I'm not sure I saw a lower price somewhere else, they would be like, well, the language actually, it's compatible with the thought that this was just our lowest price and we're advertising it on our website. And then you've got the naturalistic fallacy. That's a very common one that you see in advertising. The naturalistic fallacy, trying to market something to you simply because they say it's natural, green, no additives or whatever. In many cases, that doesn't necessarily clarify whether it's a good product or whether it's actually even healthy. As an example, you guys have probably heard about like Spirit Tobacco, which says we have all natural tobacco, and they have like a green box, and they have like some Native American insignia, all to try and reinforce the vibe that this is something that's coming from nature. So we're not the bad cigarettes. But obviously, it still has the same kind of devastating health and addictive potential. So that would be a misleading and fallacious argument for you. Sometimes euphemisms are used in language to shape the consumer's point of view in a way that's sometimes misleading. So, words that sound great are paired with the product. This is fresh. It's a miracle. It's light. It's fun. Sometimes hyperbole is seen in the ads. They make an overly hyperbolic statement about the value of their product or what it will do. The TV lineup on NBC in the evening, must-see TV. Not that you really must see it. Wheaties, Breakfast of Champions. Well, it's really just breakfast, whether you're a champion or not. So these hyperbolic claims can, again, emphasize the desirability of the product beyond its actual appeal or value. Sometimes we see bad analogies. Chevy saying, like a rock. That's a simile, but in what ways is the car really like a rock? They're trying to draw on the associations of rocks, of being durable, of being solid, indestructible, permanent. But a car really, aside from the poor analogy, is not really like a rock. It requires maintenance. They can be destroyed. And so, just trading off of that association in language would be to rely on a kind of faulty comparison, a bad analogy. Hasty generalization from stats without information about how they chose the sample. What about Tempur-Pedic? That's a company, a Swedish mattress and pillow company that has this kind of patented memory foam. I have a Tempur-Pedic pillow. It's pretty nice, but take one of their ads. It says, our sleep technology recognized by NASA, raved about by the media, and recommended worldwide by no less than 25,000 medical professionals. Okay, well, look at that statistic. It sounds like a big number, 25,000. But what is the set of medical professionals that that is a portion of, how many people are in the whole set. If you don't know that, then you might have drawn the wrong conclusion that every medical professional supports it. But looking at the numbers, there's more than 700,000 physicians in the United States, 2.8 million registered nurses. If we just only included those two groups, and not even looking at nurses, hospital orderlies, or chiropractors and massage therapists, if we just looked at those two groups, that would still mean that 25,000 is only 1% of the total size. So 25,000 sounds a lot, like a lot, until you compare it to the whole cohort that that's a portion of. And of course, that's not going to be pointed out by the advertiser because they just want to leave you with the false impression that everyone's using this thing or that everyone supports it. Okay, so a critique of advertising is fair. You know, obviously one can see the status quo of our marketing status quo and be critical about it, thinking that it can have damaging effects on society by using manipulative tactics to create markets for non-essential things that divest us of our money and empower these companies. You can also be critical in the sense that some of these companies target minorities and the poor. For example, and it's mentioned here in the book, magazines such as Ebony and Latina have twice as many ads for junk food, cigarettes, and alcohol, and 1/4 as many ads for health-promoting products compared to magazines read primarily by white women such as Good Housekeeping. In addition, in the first world, smoking is on the decline. So what are cigarette companies going to do to maintain their profit margins? They're stepping up advertising in poorer parts of the world where people have, like, I guess, less ability to follow public health guidance and to see through the clever efforts of the advertisers. So it's like people who are already least well off socioeconomically are now being targeted by the more focused ads for purchase of products that are not even healthy. So you might worry about that, the use of some of these companies to market products that are not in the best interests of individuals to people that are already socially disadvantaged, therefore intensifying the existing haves and have-nots and certain inequities that we see. Anytime that you see an ad, by the way, for addictive drugs like tobacco and alcohol, it's encouraging a person to buy something that could lead to addiction and disease, and it's not even a good thing that they need. So every ad for, like, you know, buy this beer or try this cigarette is not necessarily something that, you know, you should think is a good thing. Also, these ads are expensive, and this is a concern I have. You know, they're expensive to produce, and because of that, this increases the cost to the consumer of the relevant product by 30 to 40%. Let's talk about some of the most expensive ads that there are to produce, like Super Bowl ads. A 30-second spot during the Super Bowl is going to cost millions of dollars because of how many people are watching the Super Bowl, so that airtime is extremely valuable and expensive. So say that somebody's paid millions of dollars to run a, you know, funny ad during the Super Bowl, and they've got a celebrity in that ad that's been paid a certain amount to appear and to give an endorsement. How are you going to recover all the revenue that you've expended on this big ad? How are you going to make profit? Well, you're going to have to charge a little bit more for the product to the consumers to recoup the losses that are involved in producing the ads themselves. So what does that mean to us? We end up paying more for the product, and what are we paying for? I mean, if there wasn't so much marketing madness, then probably we would have paid less. The additional money that we do spend is to fund the ads. So it's like, not only are we buying the product, but we're also paying the company to advertise to us so that we'll buy more products. In a way, you might think that's kind of a little ironic or less than perfectly ideal. And one other thing is this. You might also worry about the monopolization of media control that the bigger companies have over the smaller ones. That, in some minds, leads to corporate consolidation of the free market and gives us as consumers fewer options to choose from. So, like, if you're like mom and pop hardware store, you know, Bill's hardware store, family owned, how are you really going to compete when Home Depot rolls into town with their huge, you know, stadium-size emporium of goods, and with the advertising dollars that they can use to flood the local airwaves with digital, internet, television, and print ads? Now, the little Bill's hardware shop might be able to put up some ads in the local media and like a couple posted signs on the door, but it's going to be hard for them to compete dollar for dollar with the big titans of, you know, of the marketplace. So over time, some say that that crowds out the diverse little independently owned small businesses, and it leaves us with just a few things to choose from: Home Depot, Walmart, you know, Costco, and some big box retailers. But I want to show you guys a balanced viewpoint, as always. So I've tried to show you how there's fair criticism of the status quo, but there also could be those that defend the legitimacy of the status quo. For example, you could reply on the other side that these ads are just catering to our already established cultural values and interests, and they are legally forbidden from outright providing false information. There are false advertising laws. So what these advertisers can do is they can bend the truth, they can use fallacious rhetoric, poor argument, humor, graphics, lighting. But what they can't do is say something that is just demonstrably false as a way of getting you to, go to their business or purchase their products. For example, if an electronics store says, hey, get in tomorrow by 12 noon, because from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, we're giving away TVs, flat screen TVs for $5. You want a 60-inch Sony flat screen? Come in, it's $5. Okay, so what would happen? You're gonna have people lined up around the block, camping overnight because they want this almost free television. And suppose that once 9 o'clock happens and they're ready to go through the doors, you go out in front and you say, okay, listen, everybody, just kidding about the $5 TVs. We just wanted to get you in the door. But now that you are here, sorry for that, but now that you are here, let's show you what we do have. We have some pretty awesome products that are at reasonable prices. If that happened, that company would be sued for sure for false advertising, and they would certainly lose because they made a directly false claim in the ad that we have $5 TVs, but that was not true. So you might say we have a kind of legal protection against the worst forms of false information in advertising, and given that, we should be able to make rational decisions on our own. There's a saying in Latin. I don't know if you've ever heard of this saying before. I mean, they would get sued for a Jonah. It's a hypothetical, but yeah, they would get. Here is a saying in Latin: caveat emptor. Now, you've maybe heard of some other famous Latin sayings that are somehow in our pop culture consciousness, like carpe diem, right? Seize the day, take control of the day, live in the now. Well, caveat emptor is another one of these little mottos from Latin that some people know. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. If you have, go ahead and let me know before I get to it, but I'll write it up here while you're thinking. And wait, sorry, I thought they actually did get sued. Well, Jonah, I was referring to a hypothetical, but if that hypothetical corresponds to a real case, then I'm sure you're correct. But anyway, yeah, you're right, Tatsuma. It means to the buyer beware. And I would say to you guys that this is a very good principle to live by. To the buyer beware. What does it mean? When you're the buyer, when you're the consumer, and you're out there in the marketplace, beware. That's all it's saying. Beware. Beware of what? Well, beware of this. People are going to try to rip you off. People are going to try and make the most money off of you that they can at the least cost to themselves, because everyone's trying to make a buck. So you should assume and take it as a given that you're going to be inundated with misleading and false claims that you're going to have to determine the truth of on your own. And if you're not wary of exploitation, manipulation, sensational and misleading claims in marketplace, if you're not wary of that and you do end up getting ripped off or somehow sold a false bill of goods, then one could argue it's on you, because you should have expected that. These people don't have a fiduciary relationship to you where they have to look out for your interests. They're trying to make money. So if you're a judicious consumer and you're aware of these facts, then you're going to be wary and you're less likely to be exploited or to make poor purchases and then end up with less money and with things that you wouldn't have needed or wanted. So to the buyer beware, caveat emptor. You can always, and you probably should, refer to other sources of product information, not just rely on the single ad that the one company has put out. If I saw a restaurant advertising, hey, come eat our food, do you really think I would just take their word for it? I mean, I would probably want to at least go on Yelp or something to see what opinions people have and what reviews have been posted about it, so that I can make a more informed decision and not just take it from the one individual source that of course wants me to make that decision. So the harm to free speech could also be seen as the bigger worry rather than cracking down on misleading advertisers. Because if we sort of force them to be more honest and less rhetorical and fallacious, you might say that starts to encroach on their freedom of speech to make a compelling and persuasive advertisement for us. And so maybe the harm to their free speech would be the greater concern than the harm to the consumers who have to live with these ads. You could also reply to concerns about monopolization that I mentioned, where the big companies keep winning and the little companies losing. You could say, well, that's not necessarily a problem. That's just the free market in action. The winners are winning, the losers are losing. If people wanted the small companies to be more powerful and profitable, then they would take their money there. But if they don't, then that just means, I guess, that people want to live in an environment where we have more big retailers and fewer, small retailers. So you can say there's a free market justification for that. So what's the problem? You can also say that our current status quo ensures that the media's funding primarily comes from advertising dollars that they get from corporate sponsors for those products that are advertised. If we were to somehow try to cut back on that, then what would the funding come from for our news and media organizations? It would have to be state funded. And then you might worry about state censorship of unpleasant stories rather than corporate censorship. And so, it's sort of like pick your poison. Is that really better? So anyway, wherever you stand on the issue, whether you're more fair and okay with the status quo, or you're more on the critical side of our marketing status quo, the point remains that you should still be vigilant about messages that are given to you and to see if there's any attempt, overt or implied, to manipulate you in some way so that you can act in conformity with your own best interests. And Paul, you say, I'm sad, had a work call. Looked like you missed some good discussion. Yeah, oh, not to worry. I totally know that all got busy things going on, but you'll be able to watch this video in replay version later. So really that's it, guys. That's all I had for you guys on media and marketing. It's just a kind of one-day crash course on all this. But I'm also going to send you some videos, like I said, and that will be what you're assigned to do for the Tuesday meeting. So we won't have a live stream Tuesday. There will be some videos that I'm going to link for you that you can watch, and that's what I want you to do for the Tuesday meeting. I'm also going to send you the instructions for the third homework, okay? And that third homework is going to be, yes, you're going to find examples of fallacies in advertisements, whether they're print, digital, whether they're on the internet or the television. And you're going to compile them in a list, give me the explanation of which fallacies in each one, and if you get all 20, then that's 100 points. It's 5 points per example. So you got to find 20 ads, basically. That's the next homework. But there'll be more about that in the written statement of it that I'm going to send around just now after class. Well, after 3:45 when I finish my next class. So are we all good then? I think I'll just close the stream out and let you guys go. Let me know if everything's fine. And until a week from now, I guess, I'll see you guys back next Thursday for the next lecture. But Tuesday, you'll have your videos to watch. So are we all right? Just let me know. Okay, thanks so much, Jonah, Preston. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Wait, Paul, your response to me is O? A little confused. I was looking more for an affirmative yes, but that's all right. Yeah, no, there is no lecture on Tuesday. As you see in the syllabus, it says videos on advertising, marketing, and digital literacy. That would have been an in-class viewing of the videos, but we're all remote, so it's fine for me to send them to you so you can watch them. So yes, that's per the schedule. This is not an improvised thing. All right, thanks guys so much. I will certainly see you then in a bit, and you can be in touch with me. I'll send you the answer key also for the quiz that you just took in the next day or so. Okay then, have a great one, and I'll see you then soon. Oh yeah, well, it's not a big difference, Paul. Slight misunderstanding, but now we're on the same page, right? I'm sending you those videos, and those videos are the substitute for the Tuesday meeting. Okay, take care, guys. See you then.